I'm Sarah Mitchell, 32, an associate financial analyst at Lincoln Wealth Partners in Chicago's Loop. Each morning, I review portfolios worth over $8 million, 0 cents with precision, before dawn. At exactly 7:03 a.m., I logged into my primary account to transfer $2,500, 0 cents for rent, and for below it, a withdrawal of $125,000, 0 cents labeled emergency transfer, had cleared overnight. No memo, no alert. My pulse surged as I refreshed the dashboard. The negative numbers stubbornly persisted. My phone buzzed with a bank notification. Unusual activity detected. I pressed the fraud hotline, voice shaking. I did not authorize this transaction. While on hold, I stared at the Chicago skyline, my laptop suddenly unfamiliar. How could someone liquidate 6 figures before sunrise? Then I saw the transfer originated from an account I never opened, yet tied to my social security number. My breath hitched. This was not an error. It was an invasion. I grabbed my bag, bolted from my apartment, and headed into the chaos of the city streets, unprepared for what lay ahead. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, the eldest daughter of 2 school teachers who taught me early on that every dollar had a purpose and every decision carried weight. At age 14, I landed my first real job filing papers at a small neighborhood credit union. I remember Mr. Alvarez, the branch manager, showing me how to balance a ledger by hand, each pencil stroke a lesson in precision. It was there I discovered the thrill of making numbers align, the quiet pride of knowing I'd caught a misplaced decimal point that saved the institution $200, 0 cents. That summer, I walked 3 miles home, daydreaming of one day overseeing millions in assets. When I enrolled at Northwestern University, I declared a double major in economics and mathematics. Between classes, I tutored undergraduates who struggled with statistics, earning $15, 0 cents an hour, enough to cover my $1,200, 0 cents monthly share of our off-personal apartment. I lived on ramen and granola bars, but I loved it. Lectures on game theory and financial derivatives fascinated me. I devoured case studies of Black Chasels and the 1987 market crash, imagining how I'd advise clients through their own crises. My GPS soared to 3.9, and in spring of my junior year, I landed an internship at Lincoln Wealth Partners for $18, 0 cents each. It was there I met Jessica Davis, a marketing major who volunteered at the financial literacy club I founded. Jessica's gift was storytelling. She could translate alpha and beta into narratives that resonated with real people. Together, we hosted free workshops for local high schoolers, teaching them how to open savings accounts and build credit scores. We spent Saturday mornings drafting slide decks in my cramped studio apartment, Jessica with her laptop, I with spreadsheets detailing the typical 5% annual return of a low-cost index fund. By senior year, our club had grown to 50 active members, and a $10,000 0 cent seed grant from the university allowed us to publish an online guide, Money Smarts for Teens, which received over 20,000 downloads in its first month. Graduation brought a full-time offer from Lincoln Wealth. My starting salary was $65,000, 0 cents, and I quickly earned a reputation for rigorous due diligence. I remember the thrill of closing my first major client, a young couple investing $50,000, 0 cents, in a diversified portfolio. Under Jessica's branding, we presented our recommendations in a visually compelling report, her charts, my calculation. That night, we celebrated over $35, 0 cents burgers at a gastropub, sharing stories of our youth ambitions. Jessica told me about her dream to start a podcast interviewing successful women in finance. I encouraged her to go for it, even offering to crunch the audience engagement data once she was off the ground. In my second year, I joined forces with Michael Turner, a former trader turned quantitative researcher. Michael was 2 years older, with a PhD in applied mathematics and a knack for algorithmic modeling. He pitched me on starting a joint wealth management fund, a boutique operation focusing on tech sector entrepreneurs. We pooled $50,000, 0C each, as seed capital. Michael wrote the trading algorithms, and I handled client acquisition and compliance. Over 12 months, we achieved a 12% net return, beating the S&P 500 by nearly 3 percentage points. We rented a small office on LaSalle Street for $2,500, 0 cents a month, splitting utilities that averaged $600, 0 cents monthly. Our weekdays began at 6 o'clock RDM. Michael would arrive with his MacBook Pro, running back-testing simulations. I'd follow, coffee in hand, reviewing overnight market movements. We shared a whiteboard, our strategies drawn in blue and red markers, growth targets, risk tolerances, stop-loss thresholds. On Fridays, we hosted a casual portfolio party, inviting clients to mingle, ask questions, and I still recall the pride when one client deposited an additional $100,000, 0 cents, after hearing our fund's 14% 6-month gain. Through it all, Jessica remained my closest confidant. When I felt overwhelmed late nights drafting regulatory filings or adjusting margin calls, she'd text me reminders to step away, breathe, and remember why I started. Jessica herself launched her podcast, Her Money Story, and invited me as her first guest. We recorded in her makeshift home studio, mic stands clinking, my voice echoing in a space cluttered with soundproof phone. The episode, in which I shared how balancing my first ledger shaped my career, garnered over 5,000 listens in a week. Seeing her success fueled my own drive to mentor younger analysts at Lincoln. By the time I turned 30, our boutique fund managed $3,600,000, 0 cents in client assets. We had 10 salaried employees, including 2 junior analysts at $55,000, 0 cents each, and a compliance officer earning $70,000, 0 cents. I justified each hire with spreadsheets projecting revenue growth. My love for numbers remained as strong as ever. Yet every success was anchored by those early lessons: the credit union office, the ramen dinners with Jessica, the boardroom presentations with Michael. Those experiences taught me that finance is as much about people and stories as it is about formulas and forecasts. As I look back on those formative years, I see how each moment, each relationship, each hard-won dollar laid the foundation for what was to come. The friendships and partnerships I forged created a network of trust and expertise that I believed was unbreakable until that fateful morning, when my bank balance betrayed me. I woke up 2 days after discovering the mysterious $125,000, 0 cents, withdrawal with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't untie. My phone buzzed before sunrise. An email from Lincoln Wealth's internal compliance system flagged an irregularity in my client transaction log. I logged into the secure portal, 5 separate entries for emergency transfer requests, each exactly $25,000, 0 cents, all time-stamped between 2:17 Aguirre and 4:45 Agui the previous night. None of those showed up in my personal records, and none bore any of the usual approval codes or digital signatures I had set up with the bank. I immediately forwarded the compliance alert to our in-house IT security team, copying our chief compliance officer, Laura Chen. My fingers trembled as I attached screenshots, red warning banners, truncated transaction IDs, and an ominous note at the bottom: potential fraud detected. I hit send and exhaled. For a moment, I imagined a single errant comma in the code, a system glitch that would explain it all. But deep down, I knew better. This felt deliberate. That afternoon, in our glass-walled conference room on LaSalle Street, I met with Jessica Davis. She clicked through the email on her tablet, eyebrows knitting together. "You've always been meticulous," she said quietly. "This didn't happen because of our typer." She pulled up our shared server logs. Lines of code scrolled past. Successful logins at 3:02 a.m. from an IP address linked to Michael Turner's home network. My heart thudded. Michael had privileged access to our trading algorithms and client data. He also had the technical skills to spoof credentials. I confronted Michael later that day by the espresso machine in our office kitchen. The corridor smelled of burnt coffee grounds and printer ink. "Michael," I said, voice steady but low, "did you make those transfers?" He paused, tamping a portafilter with more force than necessary. His fingers froze mid-press. "Of course not," he said, looking me straight in the eye. "We'd talk through it if I did." I nodded curtly and walked away, but doubt gnawed at me. Over the next 48 hours, the anomalies multiplied. My phone lit up with client texts asking why their portfolios showed sudden withdrawals. The couple whose $50,000 0-cent stake I helped broker was frantic. They thought I had bungled their account. I fielded more calls than I had in the worst weeks of tax season. Each time, I felt my credibility erode a little more. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, cross-referencing bank statements with our internal transaction reports. My Excel spreadsheet had grown to 17 tabs, each a different client account. Logical formulas linked payment IDs to user IDs, and a VLOOKUP highlighted 50 entries that should never have existed. I printed out the pages, each sheet a testament to the damage, and stacked them on my kitchen table. In the pale glow of my laptop screen, the stack looked like evidence in a crime drama. Sleep eluded me. I replayed every interaction with Michael since we founded the boutique fund together. His late-night code tweaks, his casual mentions of creative restructuring, his offhand jokes about bending the rules to boost returns. I remembered the night he celebrated our 12% annual gain by ordering champagne delivered to the office. He toasted to risk management, his gaze on me as if we shared a secret punchline. At the time, I took it as camaraderie. Now it felt like a warning I'd ignored. By Wednesday morning, I had a theory. I scheduled a meeting with our IT security lead, Raj Patel, and Laura. In our small war room, I laid out the IP logs, the unauthorized transfers, and the matching timestamps to Michael's VPN access records. Raj nodded gravely. "This is sophisticated," he said. "Whoever did this knew our systems inside out. They even bypassed multi-factor authentication." Laura tapped her pen against her notebook. "We need proof of intent before escalating to law enforcement," she said. "Otherwise, we risk false accusations." I left the meeting feeling both empowered and terrified. I had the evidence, but confronting Michael without destroying our business would be like navigating a minefield. My phone buzzed a text from Jessica. "Lunch? I have an idea." We met at a small deli around the corner. Over tuna salad sandwiches and iced tea, she sketched out a plan to corroborate the digital evidence with off-system proof. She suggested setting a trap, create a dummy account, and route a small amount of my own money through it at an unexpected time. I felt a flicker of hope. It was the first proactive step I'd taken since this nightmare began. But the moment passed as quickly as it came. I realized how precarious everything was. If I was wrong, I'd look paranoid. If I was right, I'd be waging war against my closest partner. Yet sitting there in that cramped deli booth, I knew I couldn't sit back any longer. That night, I executed the plan. I wired $1,000, 0 cents from my personal savings into an obscure sub-account linked to my social security number, scheduled it for a 3:33 a.m. withdrawal, and set the watch triggers. Then I waited, heart pounding, mind racing. My phone betrayed my anxiety with every heartbeat. At precisely 3:33 a.m., I was jolted awake by a bank alert. Withdrawal executed. $1,000, 0 cents. My inbox pinged with a system notification from our server. Unauthorized access, and in the next alert, the culprit IP traced back to Michael's VPN credentials. I sat on the edge of my bed, cold sweat soaking my pajamas. The first signs of trouble had become undeniable proof. Michael Turner, my business partner, had not only betrayed me but he had weaponized my own systems against me. I felt my hands go numb as I stared at the screen. The fight was no longer hypothetical. It was about to get real. I stayed late that Tuesday in our LaSalle Street office, surrounded by the quiet buzz of servers and the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. By 8:15 p.m., all of my colleagues had gone home, leaving me alone with stacks of printed server logs, bank statements, and internal emails. My desk lamp cast long, wavering shadows across the room as I worked to piece together the timeline of every unauthorized transaction. The soft purr of my laptop fan was the only sound besides my rapid breathing. I leaned forward, tracing a line of IP addresses in the server logs that corresponded to access at 3:33 a.m., exactly when the dummy $1,000 0 cents withdrawal had cleared. My finger paused over an entry marked Michael Turner, VPN session. Heat flared in my chest. Michael and I had built our boutique fund together from the ground up. He was my friend, my partner, the person I trusted most in this world. But these logs were unforgiving. My phone buzzed with an email alert. Client-wise account in review, negative balance. I closed the spreadsheet and stood, pacing between my desk and the conference room. The confined space made me feel trapped. I thought of Jessica's words earlier that day. You have the evidence. You know what he did. I drew in a shaky breath, steeling myself. At 8:45 p.m., I shut down my computer, gathered the printed packets, and slipped them into a leather portfolio. I walked down the quiet corridor, the overhead lights reflecting off the polished floor. Each step felt heavy, laden with dread. As I reached the elevator, I saw Michael's silhouette emerge from the stairwell at the far end. His posture was relaxed, hands in his pockets, briefcase swinging lightly. My heart lurched. He smiled when he saw me. "Sarah, still here. I thought you left hours ago." I closed the distance between us and set the portfolio down on a nearby credenza. "We need to talk." My voice was calm, but every syllable felt like it had razor edges. Michael's smile flickered. "Is everything okay?" I opened the portfolio and pulled out the first page, a spreadsheet printout with highlighted entries. "Explain this." I pointed to the series of midnight withdrawals, each exactly $25,000, 0 cents, totaling $125,000, 0 cents. The time stakes matched your VPN logins. These transfers were from our fund's main account. They were unauthorized. I slid the packet across the surface toward him. Michael frowned, leaning over the paperwork. "Looks like a system error. Could be a logging glitch." I held his gaze. "Those entries are real. I ran the checks myself." "And then there's this." I retrieved another stack. IP logs, access records, bank confirmation emails, all tied back to his credentials. "These records show you accessed my personal account at 3:33 a.m. You're the only one it points to." Michael's expression hardened. He stepped back and ran a hand through his hair. You think I'm stupid enough to leave a trail like that? His denial sounded hollow. I pressed on. I also have witness statements, emails you sent to an external address 2 weeks ago, discussing creative capital reallocation and margin safeguards. Your own words described moving money around without authorization. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, his face pale. You were always brilliant, Sarah. Too brilliant for your own good. I built this fund alongside you, I said, voice rising. I trusted you. We shared every major decision, but you poisoned our partnership. I took a breath. Why, Michael, why would you betray me and our clients? He laughed, soft, mirthless. Because you were slowing me down. The board wanted faster returns. I had risky positions that needed covering. Those margin calls were eating into our performance metrics. I saw an opportunity to protect my personal stake, and by extension, our fund's reputation. Shock constricted my throat. You gambled with our clients' money to save your trades? Michael shrugged. Semantics. In the end, the fund comes first. My vision blurred with anger. You risked everything. My reputation, your own integrity, and countless clients' livelihoods for one reckless move. I slammed my palm on the credenza. You stole $125,000, 0 cents from our own account. You nearly destroyed everything we built. He stepped closer, voice low. You have to understand the stakes. We weren't growing fast enough. The board was circling like vultures. I did what needed to be done. His hand dipped into his jacket pocket, and he pulled out a slim USB drive. I anticipated you might investigate. I've got emails, chat logs, even a recording of you admitting that you had concerns about compliance, slowing our growth. If you expose me, I'll expose you. The drive glinted under the fluorescent lights. It felt like a guillotine blade hanging over my career. Michael's eyes held a cold inevitability. Turn this fund upside down, go public with your accusations, and I release everything on this drive. Your emails, your private communications, everything that makes you look complicit in my trades and in my cover-up. You're finished. Blood pulsed in my temples. The betrayal cut deeper than any theft. He wasn't just a thief. He was a blackmailer. Gilmore's fronting me now, I whispered. He shrugged. Risk management, Sarah. Call it whatever you like. He began to walk away, then paused. Think carefully before you move. The board is already suspicious of you. One wrong step and you'll be lucky to keep your license. The click of the conference room door echoed in the silent hallway as he left. I sank to the floor, heart hammering. The USB drive sat on the credenza next to my scattered papers, a ticking time bomb. Michael had orchestrated the theft, framed me as a scapegoat, and now held my professional life hostage. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I swallowed them back. I pressed my back against the cool wall and flexed my fingers. This betrayal could have destroyed me, but it would not define me. I would fight. I would gather allies, legal counsel, and the truth. I would expose Michael Turner's lies and reclaim my integrity, no matter how high the stakes. Because some betrayals are too deep to ignore, and some fights are worth every scar. I barely recognized myself in the mirror that Friday morning. My once clear skin was sallow, eyes sunken behind dark circles that resembled bruises. I hadn't slept more than 90 minutes at a stretch in 4 nights. My chest tightened as I yanked on my suit jacket, each breath a reminder of my spiraling panic. I managed a hollow smile for our receptionist, then escaped to my office, where on my desk lay an avalanche of unopened mail. Final notices for rent, utility shut-off warnings, a credit card statement demanding $5,000, 0 cents immediately. I flicked through the pile, each envelope a verdict: overdue, delinquent, Past due. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it over the fluorescent lights as I stacked the notices into a neat pile I'd never address. I'd borrowed $5,000, 0 cents, to cover my parents' anniversary gift last month, and now I had no means to repay it. I tried to work. My inbox overflowed with panicked client emails. Why is my balance negative? Please restore my funds immediately. Is Sarah Mitchell gone rogue? Each message felt like a dagger. Each reply I drafted looked like a confession. I tapped out a response to one long-standing client whose $50,000, 0 cents, equity was now hovering in red, my hands trembling so badly I almost sent the email to the wrong address. By mid-starting, I felt dizzy and retched into the wastebasket beneath my desk. The bitter tang of coffee burned my throat, but my stomach rejected even water. My assistant knocked and asked if I'd like her to call a doctor. I snapped, "I'm fine," though my vision blurred. She backed away, eyes wide. I fled the building, cloak of professionalism abandoned. The Chicago wind slapped my cheeks as I stumbled onto the sidewalk, pressing the heels of my hands into my eyes to fight back tears. I gripped my phone and called Jessica between sobs. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. She offered to meet, but the thought of seeing her only underscored my shame. "I'll be okay," I lied, then hung up. I paced the bridge overlooking the Chicago River, metal railing biting into my palms. Cars roared beneath, their headlights slicing through the dusk. I remembered happier crossings with Jessica and Michael on portfolio party nights, the river sparkling like champagne. Now it felt like a barrier between me and every safe harbor I'd ever known. My phone buzzed, an email from the board chair, Laura Chen, requesting an emergency meeting Monday morning. My boss's words were curt. "Urgent review of fund performance and your account anomalies." Mortification surged hotter than any fever. I staggered up the riverbank, ignoring startled pedestrians, and collapsed onto a park bench. I pressed my forehead into my knees and wept until my body shook. I didn't move until a jogger's flashlight swept across my face. Darkness had fallen, and the city lights blinked on. I fumbled for my keys and managed to unlock my apartment door, drop my bag, and sink to the floor. Leaning against the door, I curled into a ball and cradled my legs. The printed server logs and bank statements in my handbag felt like shards of broken glass, evidence of my disgrace. My phone's glow caught my eye. A voicemail from Michael. I stared at it, forbade myself to listen. His voice on that recording would be another slap proof that I was trapped. I let the voicemail sit, unread, and texted my parents that I wouldn't make lunch tomorrow. I didn't explain why. I barely ate that night. I stared at the 3 overdue notices on my counter as if they might vanish if I concentrated hard enough. My apartment, usually my refuge, felt like a cell. I flicked on every lamp, unable to tolerate the darkness. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Graduation cap in the quad, our first $50,000, 0 cents client handshake, toasting champagne at our office party. Each memory was an indictment, a timeline of lost promise. As midnight approached, exhaustion finally claimed me. I lay rigid on the couch, clutching a throw pillow, tears soaked into the fabric. My phone buzzed again, another client message. I gripped it, thumb hovering over reply, then dropped it onto the coffee table. My chest heaved, sobs muffled against the back of the couch. I didn't fight the panic that seized me. I let it wash over me until I had no energy left. I awoke before dawn to the sound of my phone's alarm, an automated reminder to submit compliance reports. I silenced it and lay still, the world outside already stirring. My head buzzed with tinnitus, and a headache pounded behind my eyes. I squeezed my temples, willing clarity to return, but my mind was a static storm. At 7 o'clock a.m., I dialed 911. My voice trembled as I told the operator I couldn't breathe and felt faint. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and found me slumped on the bathroom floor, glass of cold water shattered at my side. They checked my vitals, blood pressure sky high, heart rate erratic, and loaded me onto a stretcher. One paramedic held my hand and said softly, "You're safe now," but I felt more exposed than ever. In the emergency room, I lay on a narrow hospital bed under harsh white lights. Monitors beeped steadily, witness to my breakdown. A nurse offered water. I sipped slowly, eyes closed. The doctor said I'd suffered a panic attack, exacerbated by dehydration and acute stress. And when I looked numbly, tears spilling down my cheeks. As they wheeled me to a private room, I felt a strange calm descend. The crisis had stripped me bare. I had nowhere to hide. I lay back, staring at the ceiling tiles, and let myself cry without shame. No clients, no partners, no threats, just me, broken and real. By mid-morning, the initial shock had ebbed, leaving a quiet resolve in its wake. I realized that collapsing so completely was the prelude to rebuilding. I would admit what I'd endured, seek professional help, and regain my footing before Monday's meeting. I would face Michael's threats head-on, not as a perfect analyst, but as a human being who deserved dignity. The first step was acceptance. I was not invincible. I had failed, and I needed help. But I was still standing, hopefully on firmer ground than before. The fight wasn't over, it was evolving, and this time, I would be kinder to myself. I woke the next morning before dawn, my mind still buzzing with the aftershocks of the past week. Sunlight hadn't yet broken the horizon, but my phone screen glowed with one unread email from Martin Kane, the client who'd sparked my plan yesterday. I opened it with trembling fingers. "Sarah, thank you for yesterday's call. I want you to know I'm here if you need anything. My deposit is safe. Just focus on getting your health back. Martin." His kindness was an unexpected lifeline. For the first time since discovering those phantom withdrawals, I believed I could steer us back to solid ground. I sat up straighter in bed, pressed reply to thank him, and felt a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. By 7 o'clock a.m., I was showered and dressed, my suit hanging off my shoulders but my posture already more determined. I left my apartment and hailed a cab to Jessica's place. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. "Ready to rebuild?" she asked. I smiled, despite myself. More than ever. Jessica had already drafted a press release and a client notification template. We met at her kitchen table, laptops humming, and divided tasks. She would finalize the external communication, ensuring our tone balanced transparency with reassurance. I would focus on the operational side, organizing the actual reversals, coordinating with compliance and IT, and securing a legal retainer. We mapped out a timeline. By lunchtime, provisional credits to client accounts by end of day. Self-funded compensation allocations by tomorrow morning. A regulatory report filed, and by Monday's board meeting, a public presentation of our recovery measures. First, I called Laura Chen, our Chief Compliance Officer. She picked up after 2 rings. "Good morning, Laura. I need your help reversing 15 unauthorized withdrawals totaling $130,000, 0 cents. Can we issue provisional credit by noon?" Her voice crackled with professional concern. "Absolutely," she said. "I'll get the forms ready and notify the regulator. Do you have a breakdown of client accounts?" I read her the list, confirming each account number and shortfall. "I'll handle the provisional credits and draft the regulatory filing today," Laura promised. I exhaled, relief flooding me. Next, I reached Raj Patel, head of IT security. His voicemail was full, but I texted him immediately. Martin Kane's call reignited my drive. Need reversal scripts deployed by 10 a.m. Can you confirm? Within 20 minutes his reply pinged. Already on it. ET 9:30, Ayatman. Let's close this hole. I felt genuine gratitude for his swift response. With those two pillars in place, I turned to our legal counsel. I dialed the firm we'd considered engaging last year. A junior partner answered, listened to my summary in one breath, then put me on hold. Minutes later, senior counsel Maria Ortiz came on. Sorry, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, she said warmly. I outlined Michael's blackmail threat and our recovery plan. Maria advised, proceed with your reversals and compensation. Document everything. I'll prepare an emergency retainer for fraud investigation and potential litigation. I recommend setting aside $25,000, 0 cents, for legal fees that should cover initial filings. I approved the retainer and thanked her for her prompt support. By mid-morning, I assembled the operations team in our conference room. I laid out the day's agenda. 1. Issue provisional credits. 2. Reverse the erroneous transfers. 3. Execute compensation payments. 4. Draft client communications. And 5. Prepare Monday's board presentation. Each team member nodded, energized by the clear plan. I glanced at the clock. 9:05. And turned to Rob. Status? Scripts are live, he reported. Funds are back in client accounts, waiting on compliance sign-off. I pressed Laura for her sign-off. She came in 10 minutes later with thumbs up. At 10:30 a.m. I drafted the client email to the 15 affected households. In the to field went their addresses. In the body I wrote, Dear valued client, you may have noticed unexpected withdrawals totaling X from your account. We have identified the cause, unauthorized access, and have fully restored the missing funds. Additionally, as a gesture of our commitment to you, we have allocated a goodwill credit equal to 1% of the withdrawn amount. Our compliance report has been filed with regulators, and we are enhancing our security protocols with new multi-proctigation measures. We deeply regret any anxiety this may have caused and thank you for your trust. Please reach out directly with any concerns. Sincerely, Sarah Mitchell. I CC'd Jessica and Laura. Jessica tweaked the tone for empathy, then hit send. Within an hour, positive replies trickled in. Thank you for being upfront, wrote one. I appreciate your honesty, wrote another. Those messages felt like tiny victories, a testament that transparency fosters trust. By late afternoon, provisional credits and compensation transfers settled in each client's account. The total funds outflowed. $130,000, 0 cents restoration, plus $15,000, 0 cents compensation, plus $3,000, 0 cents. Legally, I funded the $25,000, 0 cents retainer, leaving a net out-of-pocket of $173,000, 0 cents. I logged it in our ledger and prepared the expense report. As the sun dipped below Chicago's skyline, I sat across from Jessica in a quiet cafe near our office. We reviewed today's progress. All reversals complete, client messaging delivered, legal retainer secured, and Monday's slide deck drafted. Jessica raised her coffee mug. To the spark that started this. I clinked mine gently. To building back better. Riding the L train home that evening, I closed my eyes and let the rhythmic clatter. The spark of recovery had reignited more than our fund's finances. It had reignited my own sense of agency. I realized that crises reveal character, and mine answered the call with accountability and action. At home, I drafted a private note to my future self. When darkness takes hold, Remember the morning after. The spark of Martin's faith, the solidarity of Jessica, the unwavering support of Laura and Raj. You are not alone. Keep moving forward. I pressed save and shut my laptop. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in days. In my dreams, I saw the Chicago skyline at dawn, glowing gold. I woke before sunrise, heart calm, ready to face Monday's board meeting with proof that recovery isn't just about restoring what was lost. It's about building resilience, earning trust, and never letting betrayal define your destiny. I could feel the weight of the upcoming shareholder meeting pressing on me like the Chicago winter wind. The annual board gathering was set for Friday night at the Franklin Street Conference Center, and I'd decided that would be the stage for Michael Turner's public unmasking. Early that week, I reached out to my legal counsel, Maria Ortiz, and our compliance officer, Laura Chen, to design a precise plan. Compile irrefutable evidence, prepare a succinct presentation, and orchestrate just enough suspense to ensure the board fully grasped the scope of Michael's betrayal. On Tuesday morning, I arrived at the office at 6:30 a.m. The city was still dark, the streets hushed. I settled into the conference room with Maria and Laura, laptops humming and coffee brewing. Maria spread out a printed chronology. Each Unariza $25,000, 0 cents withdrawal, the corresponding VPN logs, the dummy account test, Michael's own emails referencing margin safeguards and protecting downside risk. We flagged key entries, highlighting timestamps and IP addresses in yellow. Laura prepared a succinct compliance memo, illustrating how Michael circumvented our multi-factor authentication by exploiting a dormant test account. By 9:00 a.m., the evidence packet was complete. 87 pages in total, organized into 6 sections. That afternoon, I practiced my remarks in front of a mirror in my apartment. I timed myself carefully. 90 seconds to introduce the situation, 2 minutes on the forged transactions, 2 minutes on the blackmail campaign, then a final minute revealing Michael's attempt to frame me. My voice wavered at first, but each repetition steadied my resolve. I reminded myself, I was fighting not just for restitution, but for the integrity of the fund and the trust of our clients. On Wednesday, I notified the board chair, David Reynolds, that I had urgent governance concerns. He responded with a curt acknowledgement and scheduled a preliminary teleconference with the full board for Thursday morning. That gave us exactly 24 hours to refine our strategy. I spent late Wednesday evening with Jessica Davis at her home office. She helped design clean, impactful slides. A timeline graphic illustrating the chain of events, annotated client account graphs showing the negative dips, and a side-by-side comparison of Michael's original trading performance versus the artificially inflated returns after he diverted funds. Jessica's graphic narrative expertise turned raw data into a compelling story. Thursday at 8:00 a.m., I joined the closed-door board call. 10 directors, all seasoned investors, logged in. David Reynolds opened with a reserved greeting before turning the floor over to me. I began calmly. Thank you for joining. I regret the circumstances, but I believe you need the full picture to decide the fund's future. My slides appeared on screen. Slide 1. Unauthorized withdrawals. $125,000, 0 cents, with timestamps and transaction IDs. Slide 2. Internal security breach, showing the VPN log entries tied to Michael's credentials. At each point I paused, letting the evidence speak. Questions came fast. Who overrides the transfers? What override failures occurred? How soon could we restore client confidence? I transitioned to slide 4, blackmail and framing attempt. My voice grew firmer. And after I uncovered the transfers, Mr. Turner sent me this USB drive containing forged emails and chat logs, accusing me of complicity. He threatened to release these to regulators and the press. I inserted a short audio clip of Michael's recorded voicemail. "Expose me, and I'll make sure you're disbarred and ruined." The board members exchanged grim look. One by one, they murmured, eyes fixed on their screens. Between slides, Maria added legal context, potential civil and criminal exposure for Michael under securities fraud statutes, referencing relevant sections of the Exchange Act. Laura explained immediate corrective measures completed that morning: enhanced authentication, audit trails, and an external penetration test scheduled for next week. Each expert voice reinforced the veracity of the narrative I led. After 20 minutes, the room fell silent. David Reynolds cleared his throat. "Miss Mitchell, thank you for this thorough presentation. The board will convene in person tomorrow evening to vote on your recommended courses of action." That sounded formal, but I sensed consensus shifting in my favor. I ended the call by reaffirming my commitment. I stand ready to support a smooth transition and ensure our clients' interests remain paramount. Friday at 5:00 p.m., the Franklin Street Conference Center's ballroom, filled with investors, board members, and senior staff. The chandelier's crystals refracted the light across polished oak tables, set with nameplate. I arrived early, dressed in a charcoal gray suit, heart steady despite the adrenaline pulsing through my veins. Michael was already present, flanked by 2 attorneys, his composure cool as ever. He caught my eye and gave a curt nod, exuding confidence. I exhaled slowly, reminded myself of why I was here. At 7:00 p.m., David Reynolds called the meeting to order. After routine reports, he announced an unscheduled agenda item: discussion of recent compliance breach and ramifications. He gestured toward me. Standing, I walked to the podium, clicking to projector slide 1. The hum of conversation faded into attentive silence. I recapped the event succinctly, then guided the audience through the same evidence I'd shared with the board. Transaction logs, VPN records, blackmail audio. Each slide landed with palpable impact. Halfway through, Michael rose unexpectedly. "This is a witch hunt," he thundered. "You're defaming me to deflect blame from Sarah, who authorized these actions," he said, sweeping his hand toward me. Gasps echoed around the room. I held my ground. My next slide displayed Michael's own emails discussing off-board capital reallocation sent to an external address, evidence he'd forgetfully carbon copied to a compliance auditor 2 months earlier. The board members murmured again, reviewing their printed handouts. Michael's face drained color. In the ensuing debate, board members questioned Michael directly, demanding explanations. He started, attempting to deflect, but repeatedly contradicted the documented facts. David Reynolds called for a vote. One option to remove Michael from all executive functions and initiate legal proceedings, the other to postpone. The ballots were cast and collected. In the hush that followed, David announced the tally: unanimous support for Michael's immediate suspension, pending litigation, and full backing of Sarah's leadership through the recovery transition. A wave of relief washed over me. Applause rippled through the room. Michael slumped in his chair, eyes cast down. I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. Betrayal was bitter, even sweeter when avenged. After the meeting, clients approached me, expressing gratitude and renewed confidence. One handed me a check for $5,000, 0 cents, as a goodwill bonus pledge. I bowed my head in thanks. That night, back at my apartment, I reflected on the past week. In facing Michael's deceit publicly, I'd risked everything, but I'd also reclaimed it. The fund's assets were secure, our clients reassured, and I had the board's unwavering trust. More importantly, I demonstrated that integrity and transparency could prevail over greed and manipulation. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to the entire staff, celebrating our victory, outlining the next steps for enhanced security, introducing our interim new OO, and affirming our commitment to ethical leadership. I clicked send and leaned back, exhaustion and exhilaration mingling. The snow fell softly outside, blanketing the city in quiet promise. Turning the tables had not only toppled my betrayer, it had transformed me into a stronger leader. I had learned that courage in the face of treachery and a meticulously planned strategy could restore justice and faith. As I closed my eyes that night, the Chicago skyline shimmered through my window, and I knew I was ready for whatever came next. Jessica Davis had her own brush with corporate scandal 3 years before she helped me recover our fund. Then, working as a junior marketing analyst at Midland National Bank, she discovered a hidden fee scheme siphoning small percentages from customer accounts each quarter. When she audited the service fee ledger, she spotted exactly $20,000 in unexplained charges labeled processing fee, applied over 6 consecutive months. No internal policies justified these deductions, and none of the bank's customer statements contained disclosure notices for those fees. Driven by her commitment to transparency, Jessica compiled spreadsheets of the fee entries, archived internal emails instructing tellers to avoid customer questions, and copied policy drafts her colleagues had never seen. She presented her evidence to her direct manager, only to be rebuffed with a curt instruction to cease digging or risk her standing. Undeterred, she escalated the documentation to the bank's internal audit department, triggering a formal investigation into the dubious charges. The auditors confirmed that several executive officers had authorized the fee scheme to inflate quarterly earnings, violating consumer protection regulations. Midland National Bank ultimately agreed to refund the full $20,000 plus a 25% penalty, totaling $25,000, all charged against its reserves. The restitution payments dispersed over 3 months, restored customer trust, and avoided regulatory fines that could have exceeded $250,000. Jessica's whistleblowing risked her career. She endured exclusion from key projects and informal demotion threats before compliance committee recognition arrived. She received a commendation letter from the state banking regulator and a formal award from her bank's ethics council the following year. Through that ordeal, Jessica learned invaluable lessons about ethical leadership, the importance of meticulous documentation, and the courage required to hold institutions accountable. When Michael Turner attempted to frame me with fabricated emails, Jessica drew directly on her whistleblower experience to secure our evidence in a tamper-evident archive. Her insistence on an auditable chain of custody for every email header, server log, and compliance report became the blueprint for our legal and compliance strategy. Jessica's side story demonstrates that true accountability often depends on one individual's willingness to document wrongdoing and demand transparency, a lesson that empowered me to turn the tables decisively. Her decisive action then provided me the model for exposing Michael Turner's deception and safeguarding our clients' assets. The morning after the board's unanimous vote, Michael Turner's world began to unravel. By 8:00 a.m., the company's legal team had filed a formal complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission, detailing his unauthorized withdrawals, margin call cover-up, and blackmail attempts. The SEC acknowledged receipt and opened an investigation under Rule 10b-5 for securities fraud. Simultaneously, our criminal attorneys submitted a referral to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, urging charges of theft by deception and extortion. Within 24 hours, law enforcement agents arrived at Michael's residence with a search warrant. They seized his laptop, external hard drives, and that incriminating USB drive he had used to threaten me. News of Michael's suspension and pending legal action spread quickly through financial news outlets. By midday, Bloomberg and Reuters ran headlines citing our press release and quoting directly from the board's statement. Ms. Mitchell's leadership and transparency have restored confidence in Lincoln Wealth Partners. Social media buzzed with commentary. Wall Street insiders praised Sarah Mitchell's decisive action, while commentators speculated on Michael's potential sentence under Illinois law, which carries up to 5 years in prison for securities fraud involving amounts over $100,000. 0 cents. Clients who had paused new investments resumed deposits within 56 hours. We saw $2,300,000, 0 cents in inflows, a 15% increase from the week before. As the SEC investigation progressed, Michael faced repeated interviews under oath. Our counsel provided investigators with the 87-page evidence packet, firm transaction logs, and a chain of custody affidavit for the USB drive. Federal auditors confirmed that Michael had created a shell account on our platform, routing $125,000, 0 cents, threw it in 5 equal transfers to conceal the source, then redirected the funds back into his personal trading account. The auditor's report concluded that his actions violated Sections 17(p)(2) and 17(p)(3) of the Securities Act of 1933, making him liable for civil penalties, disgorgement of ill-gotten gains, and prejudgment interest. Facing overwhelming evidence, Michael's defense began to crumble. His attorneys attempted to negotiate a settlement. Michael would repay $155,000, 0 cents, the stolen $125,000, 0 cents, in civil penalty, in exchange for a deferred prosecution agreement. They asked that the case remain confidential to protect innocent employees and avoid client panic. But the SEC refused, citing the need for public enforcement to deter future white-collar crimes. The state's attorney's office followed suit, insisting on pressing criminal charges to send a message about corporate accountability. In a pretrial hearing 6 weeks later, Michael appeared in the Daly Center courthouse, wearing a charcoal suit and navy tie, his signature colors now incongruous in a crowded courtroom. Reporters lined the gallery. When Judge Helen Alvarez read the indictment, Michael's shoulders slumped. The charges included 6 counts of securities fraud, 2 counts of theft by deception, and 1 count of extortion. His bail was set at $200,000, 0 cents, unsecured pending trial. The judge warned him that any attempt to tamper with evidence would result in immediate revocation of bail and potential incarceration. Michael's downfall extended beyond the courtroom. His professional licenses were suspended by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, issued a public censure, forbidding him from associating with any broker-dealer or investment advisor firm. News of his suspension led Michael's former clients to withdraw their accounts. Over $4 million, 0 cents, fled the fund within days. Colleagues, who once praised his quantitative acumen, now distanced themselves on LinkedIn, removing endorsements and sending polite but distant messages. His personal finances crumbled. Margin calls on his speculative trades went unsettled, triggering automatic liquidations that left him with margin debt estimated at $80,000, 0 cents. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding a culture of compliance and accountability at Lincoln Wealth Partners. The board voted to allocate $50,000, 0 cents, toward an independent ethics audit and to implement quarterly integrity reviews led by an external advisory committee. We also installed a new Chief Operating Officer, Maria Ortiz, whose legal expertise and decisive leadership style restored team morale. Monthly client feedback scores rose from 82% satisfaction to 94% in the quarter following Michael's suspension. On the day Michael pleaded guilty to 1 count of securities fraud and 1 count of extortion, he stood before Judge Alvarez and addressed the court. His voice was subdued as he admitted wrongdoing, apologized for betraying clients and colleagues, and agreed to repay $160,000, 0 cents, in restitution. The judge sentenced him to 24 months of probation, 200 hours of community service teaching financial literacy, and ordered him to attend a white-collar crime victim offender dialogue program. No prison time was imposed, but the public record of his conviction and disciplinary actions ensured he would never work in finance again. In the aftermath, Michael's public reputation lay in ruins. Articles chronicling his rise and fall became case studies in business schools. His LinkedIn page displayed a license-suspended banner, and any search for his name returned headlines of scandal. His personal network evaporated, invitations went unanswered, calls unreturned. The man who once commanded millions in client assets now struggled to secure freelance consulting gigs at $50, 0 cents an hour, an ironic echo of my own early internship wage. As I reflected on Michael's downfall, I felt a complex mix of relief, sorrow, and resolve. His betrayal had tested every professional and personal boundary I had built, yet the system of governance, the dedication of our team, and the tenacity of our clients had prevailed. The lesson endured. Misdeeds may grant temporary advantage, but integrity and transparency build unshakable foundations. Michael Turner's downfall stood as both a cautionary tale and a vindication of values that would guide me and Lincoln Wealth Partners into the future. I woke early the morning after our boardroom victory with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. The city beyond my window was stirring honkin' taxis, distant chatter, and the rumble of the L train on elevated tracks. I stretched and glanced at my phone. 8 unread messages, all from clients and colleagues thanking me for restoring their trust. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that while the battle was won, the work of rebuilding lasting integrity was just beginning. By 8:00 a.m., I was at my desk in our Chicago Loop office, reviewing the quarter's performance metric. Despite the turmoil, our boutique fund had delivered a 9.5% return, just shy of our 10% target, and attracted $2 million, 0 cents, in net new investments. I updated our growth forecast, projecting a 12% annual increase over the next year, fueled by renewed client confidence and enhanced marketing initiatives. Each figure on the spreadsheet felt like proof of resilience, not just numbers in a table. I drafted an all-staff email. Good morning, Lincoln Wealth Partners. Yesterday's events underscored our collective strength and our commitment to ethical stewardship. We reversed $130,000, 0 cents, in unauthorized withdrawals, issued $15,000, 0 cents, in client goodwill credits, and secured a $25,000, 0 cents, legal retainer to pursue justice. Our compliance enhancement, including biometric multi-factor authentication and quarterly integrity audits, are in place. Thank you for your professionalism, collaboration, and dedication to transparency as we move forward. I hit send and watched colleagues' replies flood in. Volunteers for the new ethics committee, IT specialists proposing advanced encryption tools, and operations staff requesting deeper oversight dashboards. The spirit of collaboration that had healed us was palpable. Later that morning, I met with our newly appointed COO, Maria Ortiz, over coffee near the office. We outlined long-term strategies, launching a client education portal, hosting quarterly Ask Me Anything webinars, and publishing an annual public integrity report. We agreed that transparency would remain our competitive edge. Maria looked me in the eye and said, "Clients will remember how we handled this. They'll stick with us because they trust us, not just our returns." That afternoon, I prepared for Monday's live webinar with clients. I rehearsed sharing our story candidly: the unauthorized withdrawals, the emotional collapse, the recovery spark, and the turning of the table. I plan to walk them through our $50,000, 0 cents investment in real-time anomaly detection systems, our $10,000, 0 cents annual external audit engagement, and the new mandate that every team member complete quarterly ethics training. By the time I logged off, I felt confident these measures would reinforce our pledge to protect clients, preserve integrity, and prevent future breaches. That evening, back at my apartment, I reflected on my journey. A year ago, I was balancing seed capital with Michael Turner, driven by ambition and trust that partners would honor mutual goals. I never imagined betrayal. I called my parents in Evanston. My mother's voice quivered with relief. "We're so proud of you, Sarah." My father's steady tone reminded me of early lessons. Integrity matters above all. I promised to honor those words by mentoring young analysts and establishing a scholarship fund at Northwestern for women pursuing finance, a tribute to Jessica's and my own journeys. That weekend, I laced up my running shoes and jogged along the Chicago River, each stride carrying away the last vestiges of anxiety. The skyline gleamed in the morning sun, and I felt connected to every step of my story: the credit union archives, the late-night coding sessions, the courtroom confrontation, and the boardroom vindication. Each chapter had shaped the professional and the person I had become. Monday morning's webinar was a success. Over 200 clients logged in as I shared our enhanced protocols, answered questions live, and reaffirmed our commitment to safeguarding their assets. The chat window overflowed with appreciation. "Thank you for your transparency. I trust you more than ever, and looking forward to our next quarter together." One client even pledged an additional $50,000, 0 cents reinvestment. The outpouring warmed me, reminding me that honesty and accountability yield enduring trust. As I closed my laptop, I felt a profound sense of purpose. The lessons I learned, adaptability, accountability, and ethical leadership, would guide me throughout my career. I stood and looked out at Chicago's skyline one last time before turning off the office lights. Challenges would inevitably arise, but I was ready. Our fund was stronger, our processes more robust, and our team more united than ever. Betrayal had threatened to break me, but it forged an unbreakable resolve instead. The true measure of success wasn't the returns on our balance sheets, it was the trust we earned, and the integrity we upheld. As I stepped into that new dawn, I carried that truth with me, prepared to write the next chapter of our story.